Hey everyone, welcome to AMA number 4. All right. I'm a little early, I think. Let's see, 11:58. We'll give it a couple of minutes for people to join. Hope everybody's doing okay. I'm I'm doing good. There's a little bit of a bomb cyclone weather pattern here. That kind of like looked outside of my house. No, I'm kidding. It's really bad. Like I've never seen like so much snow, rain, and like I think sleet and hail, all different sorts of different forms of water. So, and I'm getting that the stream is offline. Oh, that's strange. Okay, looks like we're on. Perfect. Hello everyone. Esfubar here. Welcome to AMA number 4. All right. Yes, yes. Hope everybody is doing okay. I'm actually in the middle of a pretty bad storm. They called it the bomb cyclone, and I've never seen so much snow, rain, and sleet happening as I've seen like this morning. It's really bad. Thank God I had an early call this morning, so I woke up pretty early around 6 a.m. Took a shower and then walked my dog around 7 before that whole thing started. And then when I came back, it was just like 15 minutes later, and it was pretty bad. So I'm okay. I'm doing okay. Supposedly the worst of it is gonna come this afternoon. So if you live in the New York area or in the East Coast, hope you're doing okay. And as you know, this is an Ask Me Anything. AMA stands for Ask Me Anything. So this is the number 3 we've done. So pretty cool. The number 1 and number 2 were pretty interesting, but number 3 definitely feels like I'm graduating a little bit. And if you're on the chat, say hello. I see Xavier, my brother from Germany. Hi, Javier. Thanks for coming. He wasn't able to attend the first 2 ones, but he said he'll be hanging around here at this one because he's still at work. So Javier, don't work till too late. Okay, go home. And I know that's snowing over there in Germany as well. So be careful out there. So a couple of things really quickly. My website FromZero.io. You can also subscribe at FromZero.edu and get the latest and greatest about my work and the things that I'm working on. Also, the Facebook channel is FromZero.edu, and it's also post information, but the most important ones that and I want you to take a moment is for the there's the Facebook one. Take a moment and subscribe. So to subscribe, you can click here and click on newsletter, or you can go to FromZero.io/newsletter and subscribe. It takes just 1 second, and I can then start sending you good stuff, new videos that I post to the YouTube channel. Of course, if you're in the YouTube channel, you know where the YouTube channel is. And welcome people that are coming. There's more people coming in. Welcome to the 4th AMA. So that's it for taking care of that. If you have any questions, just post them on the chat, and I'm going to be answering them as you come in. Otherwise, I pick and choose some questions that I see around my Udemy courses. If you tweet on them, you can tweet at FromZero.edu and then just put the hashtag hashtag AskFromZero, and I'll get to your questions and answer them here live. So it's 12 p.m. Eastern, 12:05 actually, and I believe it's 5:05 GMT. So if there's no questions yet in the chat room, I'm going to be picking some from Udemy. And this first question comes from Steve. Thanks, Steve, for being a Udemy student. He has a very good question. So why Docker? Jorge, I realize this is a rookie question. There's no rookie questions. All questions are good. I realize these are rookie questions, but why use Docker? Why do you recommend using it when developing APIs using Python Flask? Can you develop and deploy a Flask server just fine without Docker? And I think it's a very good question. Some people don't know exactly what the value of Docker is. Docker is a technology that has evolved a lot in the past, I would say even few months. They constantly release new clients, Docker clients, and I think that it's sorry, I have my phone turned on. And I believe that it's a very valuable tool. It does have its issues, I think mostly around networking. So I still use it on a daily basis. I think Docker makes a lot of sense, and I would never not use it if I had to spawn more than, say, 2 servers. Like if I have a complex project that I'm working right now, which is entails like having MongoDB, Neo4j, 2 Flask servers that are kind of like separate code bases. So I wouldn't do that without using Docker. Like Docker allows me to create this, like, it's called orchestrating. So I'm orchestrating all these servers and just like start Docker, start those Docker instances, and I can see that working fine. And that's where it makes most sense. If you're just going to do like Flask development and maybe use MySQL, or Flask development and use MongoDB, then it's okay to install those locally. And as you've seen on my videos on the YouTube channel, I prefer package managers for those. So Chocolatey for Windows and Homebrew for the Mac. But if you're going to have more than one, so let's say now you have to have a Redis server up and running, and now you have to have some other database at the same time, Docker allows you to manage those easier. The other thing is, if you want to kind of like mimic what the production environment is, so for example, you're working on the production environment, it's a Fedora box, or it's a Red Hat or CentOS or Ubuntu, and you want to like really install the same library versions and the same server-wide kind of like packages, it's better to use Docker, because you're actually running that instance with those packages, with that OS, and that makes it much better, versus having this installed in your Mac or your Windows machine, the libraries can be a little different. Maybe the version of that library is a little bit old, so you don't want to do that. You want to be up to date or as par or as similar to your production environment as you are on the development environment. So that's that. So definitely recommend using Docker. Like I said, it still has some networking issues, especially connecting between instances. So if sometimes I load like the Flask application, and the browser is spinning and spinning because it's trying to connect. I don't know why they haven't solved that yet. It's very annoying, but it is what it is, and it doesn't happen all the time. So it works, I would say 70% or 80% of the time. So that's that. So thanks, Steve, for the question. No other questions here in the chat so far. So that's good. Now let's go to the next question, and this one comes. Oh, it's also Steve. That's very. I didn't even realize, but that's very interesting. You make very good questions, Steve. So he's saying OPT. In all my courses, I recommend that you install things on /OPT. And he's asking the following: Jorge, you also mentioned that you use OPT a lot, but I don't recall you saying anything about it before. Is that your root development folder? Why OPT? And excellent questions. I don't think I ever answered this, and maybe on the new version of the Flask course that is coming out pretty soon, I'm going to explain a little bit of what the OPT means. So if you search, and I did a search on the definitions of the different the Linux file system has a history, and it has all these like different folders. And there's this document that I'll put the link on the YouTube channel, on the YouTube video, where it says, kind of like the file system hierarchy, and you have, /bin, /boot, /dev, /etc, /home. There's all these like folders that when you start using, especially Linux boxes in production, you get used to them, and you kind of like get very, very acquainted with them. So OPT is one that is officially what it's used for and here I'm reading from this Linux file system hierarchy. The directory OPT is reserved for all the software and add-on packages that are not part of the default installation. For example, and this is like very, very old packages, very old software, like I haven't heard these names since the 90s. For example, Star Office, Kylix, Netscape Communicator, and WordPerfect packages are normally found here. So it's interesting that they that this document, this must be a very old document, but that's the gist of OPT is like you install there your packages or the software that are not part of the default installation, i.e. the Linux, the Linux installation. So I think that it's interesting that throughout the time I've gotten used to putting packages there. So that's why I put the Flask, all the courses that I make and the Flask applications, I put them on OPT, especially on the Mac. On Windows, I'm kind of like I've held a little bit on installing things on C, :/OPT, but there's no reason why you shouldn't do that. So I would say OPT all the way. So hope that answers your question, Steve. And I see more people joining in. Everybody, hi everybody, welcome to the AMA number 3. So let's go on the next one. There's a bit of a delay between what I say and the chat. So if you ask something and I don't respond immediately, that because that small delay that's happening. It's about like 5 seconds, I'd say. Okay, so the next question here in the Udemy forums comes from Paul, and this is a very you know this question comes up a lot. It's basically that slash username profile routing. So you know how, like, for example, in Twitter, your username is Twitter slash sfubar in my case, in my personal profile, and Facebook is the same thing. So serve like social applications and services, they like this practice of having the URL slash and the username. But of course, this brings a challenge, which is like, okay, but what about the other functions like log in, log out, register? How do you manage that? So for example, and Paul makes very good points here. He says, I see two choices to solve this. One, maintain a list of the application routes and disallow users from registering these usernames. Potentially clumsy. Very true. But so what he's saying here is like, before when people register on your application, you would have to have a whitelist or a blacklist of usernames that people cannot use, and people cannot use login, log out, register. So, and you would need to keep that list kind of like updated. That's not too bad. Like, especially if you use, let's say the very obvious one is login, log out, and register. After that, you can just use like kind of like a RESTful approach and do, slash user slash edit or slash, feed or slash profile, and then just keep those ones, just in case people register without a username, just reject them. So it's not too clumsy, but I agree it is a little bit clumsy. The second one is change the profile page route to have a unique path like slash profile slash username. So that's like, that's also like an approach. And then, that people are not going to, they can use login as their username, and you're going to have as your profile page slash profile slash login. Again, why, you shouldn't let people register with the name login, log out, or register. But those are definitely the two options. Now, the one thing I'll say is if a user registers with login, log out, register, and you have that route registered on your application, I think it takes precedence. It depends, I think, on how you set up your application. But if you put your profile at the very end of the list of user operations, then Flask, whatever it finds first, is going to route through there. So if it's slash login and the route is on the top of the page, and then logout is the second one, and register is the third one, and profile is the last one, then if somebody registers with the name login, they wouldn't be able to see their profile, and people would always land on the login page. So that's not, it's not very good, but I guess it still works. All right. But what I would say is, especially for like social applications, having slash profile username or slash user slash username, it's kind of like it goes against what people are already used to. So I would just leave it as slash username, because that's kind of like the norm. And then what I would do is maintain application routes, and check against those. And one thing that I'm just thinking about, which could be interesting, is there a way to somehow feed into the Flask routing list and not have to populate that manually? If you find that out, put it on the comments on the YouTube channel, or at me at FromZero or at sfubar, and tell me that you found a way to like automatically get all the routes for an application, so that when you do the register part, you check against that list and you don't have to like update that manually. That would be interesting, actually, as an exercise. And I'm sure that list lives somewhere, because when you do URL4, like Flask knows what the routes are. So you know, an interesting thing to think about. And welcome. There's more people now. Welcome everybody. So if you're here, you go ahead and say hi, and say where you're from. If you're a Udemy student or another student from another one of the sites, welcome to the AMA. Next question that I'm going to be answering is this from King's Call. So in the introduction to Flask, I have those quizzes, right? And one of the quiz questions is, I guess the variable format for variables is supposed to be, not camel case or uppercase anything. It's lowercase, and the words separated by underscores. Like if you have a space, for example, get list, it would be get underscore list. That's what PEP 8 says variables should be written as. And I, just in case there's some, and I'm going to put the link to this as well. There's some discussion about this. This is from PEP 8, and it says function and variable name. So functions also follow this format. Function names should be lowercase with words separated by underscores as necessary to improve readability. Variable names follow the same convention as function names. Mixed case, which is lowercase on the first word and then any subsequent word in uppercase for the first letter, is allowed only in contexts where that's already the prevailing style, e.g. threading PY, to retain backwards compatibility. So what they're saying here is like, if you have some sort of library that you're importing and it already exists when you started creating your application, then it's okay if you use mixed case. But otherwise, very clearly, it says here that you should use words separated by underscores on lowercase. So King's Call says it is acceptable in Python to write variables in camel case format. It's just not PEP 8 compliant. Well, PEP 8 is kind of like what the formatting guidelines are. Of course, you don't have to follow PEP 8, but if you were working in one of the companies that I was a manager in, I would definitely press you on this to work on PEP 8 compliant. And he says the correct answer should be acceptable. This is not really a question. Again, what do you think? I'm open to hear other answers to this question, but I think PEP 8 says it in a very clear and concise way that it's words, lowercase words separated by underscores for functions and variables. All right, and this is the last. This is not a. I wanted to close with this because this caused quite an uproar on the internets. And this was an Ask Me Anything that Bill Gates had with the Reddit community. And one question that came up, one user asked, tabs or spaces? That was just it. And Bill Gates answered, when I code, I use tabs because you want the columns to line up. For some Word documents, I use tabs. You want things to adjust when you go back and edit them, and tabs help. And I really respect Mr. Bill Gates. I think what he's doing for humanity is amazing. Lots of respect for him. But I strongly disagree. And there's a famous, well, not famous. If you watch Silicon Valley, there's an episode about this that's pretty funny, where the founder of the startup gets into this discussion with his quote unquote girlfriend, and the girlfriend says, tabs are fine, and he goes berserk. He just loses it. And it's pretty funny. You have to, if you don't watch Silicon Valley and you're a developer, definitely recommend it. But in any case, you don't have to use tabs for columns to line up. Like if you use a monospaced font, which you should if you're coding, then spaces and tabs are going to line up the same if you use the same amount of spaces. Additionally, PEP 8 recommends that you use spaces, not tabs. So if you're coding in Python, tabs are not, the nice thing. And the thing that I find with tabs is that tabs could be rendered differently in different OSs, and it's like a special character that is now in your code base everywhere. Versus if you use spaces, spaces are everywhere. But spaces are part of the, the normal, the first like 65 characters of ASCII. So why use tabs? Don't use tabs, people. Just use spaces. Spaces to go. All right. So this is gonna be a short one. I'm very excited about finishing number 3, and like I said, I'm open for questions. If you want to ask them anytime with the hashtag #AskFromZero, and use FromZero.edu with your question. And seems like the camera is not showing up for some reason. Let's see here. Oh, it looks like I'm having technical difficulties. I did see that the camera live is acting up. Sorry about that, folks. This is why it's oh, there you go. Oh no, it's not working. So sorry, I'm gonna end with a black screen. That's AMA number 3, and my name is Esfubar. I'm kind of in a dark room right now, so you don't see me. Thanks for attending, and see you next week. This happens every Friday at 5 p.m. GMT, 12 p.m. Eastern. See you in the next one.